Warning. The following mini-documentary contains multiple subjects that include but are not limited to sexual assault, sexual harassment, rape. Viewer discretion is advised. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarships. No copyright infringement intended. Disclaimer. The structure of the short film is built around interview answers from different individuals. No names of anyone interviewed will be released. Schools are a place where students receive their education so that the students may become well-informed individuals who will be able to contribute to the world and society. Whether it's developing medicine to subdue diseases, working to better the lives of the less fortunate, or combating current issues to make sure the future is better for everyone. However, any student at any school can be the target of sexual violence at any point during their time as a young student. This short film will address this epidemic of sexual violence against students that plagues thousands of high schools and colleges across the United States, possible reasons for why this is such a problem, and how people can help combat sexual violence at schools. Keep watching till the end for online resources on this topic, including hotlines, organizations, and info guides, and for some extra content relating to this issue. Part 1 will simply focus on important vocabulary that will be used throughout this short film. Consent is permission for something to happen or agreement to do something. Objectification is the action of degrading someone to the status of a mere object. Sexual violence, a sexual act, committed against someone without the person's freely given consent. Part 2. What is sexual assault or sexual harassment?
It's when somebody is touching somebody else in a way that makes them uncomfortable or is unwanted.
Wanted on non-consensual advancement of a sexual manner.
So anything that makes someone feel harassed, I guess.
It's like not consensual.
Without anything that you do to anyone, male, female, without asking for consent.
So it's like acting, like making unwanted advances towards someone that is obviously not consensual. Okay.
Sexual assault is any type of sexual contact or behavior that occurs without the explicit consent of the individual. Sexual harassment is unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or other unwanted verbal or physical contact of a sexual nature. Part 3. Is sexual assault or sexual harassment present on high school and college campuses?
Why do you feel that way?
Because I was very close to that happening to me. And so it's real. And a lot of my friends have gone through it.
Yes,
Why do you feel that way?
because you always hear stories about it where people come out and they say, yes, I have been sexually assaulted, or various other stories. And what is more or less happening is sometimes these things happen and then not necessarily considered sexual assault by the women, possibly, or even by the men.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why I believe that it happened on campus is because you hear about it all the time.
Like Brock Turner and all that?
Yes, you hear about it all the time. And
I do believe so. I see it on a daily basis.
How
And
so? Like, can you
I,
give me an example?
um,
If you can remember it.
yeah, I see like unwanted touching, unwanted verbal harassment. It's just a lot of stuff that happens.
Absolutely.
How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, I see it sometimes. I see casual, not just assault, but maybe harassment in people's language. Most of the time it's, boys towards girls, but sometimes I see it the other way around too. So I observe it, not in the classroom, but sometimes in the hallway or when
Okay.
people think they're being unsupervised by adults.
Substantial evidence shows that sexual violence is in fact present on school campuses. Here are some statistics. A given school year, up to 58% of middle and high school students have reported experiencing sexual violence. While anyone can be a target for a sexual violence act, studies have shown that young girls with much more developed bodies are most likely to be victims of sexual violence. 1 out of 5 girls, or about 20% of girls, say they've been sexually assaulted at school. 1 out of 12 teens have admitted that they've sexually abused someone they've dated. 60% of high school boys say it's acceptable to act sexually violent towards a girl in certain circumstances. And in 2013, U.S. public schools reported an estimated 4,200 instances of sexual violence taking place in the schools. College students experience rape and or other forms of sexual violence during the time they're in college. 10.4% of graduate and professional students experience some form of sexual violence. 23% of female undergraduate students experience sexual violence during their time at college, whether it's rape, physical force, or incapacitation. 90% of sexual violence victims knew their assailant prior to the attack. About 50% of sexual assault cases reported at colleges occur during the first semester of the school year. 65% of sexual violence cases go unreported, making sexual violence the most underreported crime on college campuses. It should also be noted that many assailants are often While there's never a clear motive as to why assailants commit acts of sexual violence, many can attribute female objectification as a reason assailants feel they can take advantage. Part 4. Are women objectified by mainstream culture?
Culture.
Yes, there's a lot of objectification of women by mainstream media and culture. You see it a lot on television shows and in the movies and even in advertisements.
Yes,
Why do you feel that way?
because you always see the man in the dominant position in many either pictures or even many times in TV shows. But, I mean, how many TV shows have a strong female character and she's the main character? While it's happening more today, it's still not the majority. It's still not the
Culture. Most definitely. I feel like it's gotten to a point where just men, even women, just look at us as like a compilation of body parts rather than human beings.
While many individuals argue that women aren't objectified in any fashion, it's quite obvious that advertising companies do turn to depicting women as objects to sell their products, especially perfume and beauty ads. Most of the time, advertisements have a male and female figure, with the male figure in the dominant position, and in some cases the woman is being choked, held down, or being felt up by the male figure. Other ads are just downright wrong. Part 5. Combating sexual assault. And in general. The most noteworthy acts are Title IX, Violence Against Women Act, and the Campus Save Act. Title IX is a law implemented in 1972, along with the U.S. Education Amendments of 1972. Title IX prohibits gender discrimination on school campuses. The Violence Against Women Act is a United States federal law enacted in 1994. The law allows for $1.6 billion to be used in investigations and prosecutions of violence against women. In the 2000s, the law then included protection for same-sex couples, and although it was greeted with opposition from conservatives, the law was reinstated in 2013. The Campus Save Act is a federal law that was passed in 2013 and includes mandatory laws for colleges or universities. Colleges must be transparent when taking in reports of sexual violence. This includes maintaining statistics on dating violence, domestic violence, stalking incidents, and sexual assault. Institutions are also required to provide an explanation of its anti-sexual violence policies and procedures in its annual security report. Colleges must guarantee rights for victims of sexual violence and certain accommodations to victims. This includes schedule and dorm changes. Campus-wide sexual violence prevention and education programs are required. Colleges also are required to provide clear definition of awareness programs, bystander interventions, risk reduction, primary prevention, and must explain how these terms are being used and legal purposes. Universities must also have protocol for disciplinary proceedings, and the colleges must follow certain standards. This includes descriptions of possible sanctions an institution might levy sharing an accused student. This act also requires that academic institutions execute impartial disciplinary proceedings in a quick manner. What you can do to help combat sexual violence at schools. Share resources and groups that help survivors. The first thing you can do to help sexual assault survivors is to believe them. Analysis shows that only 2% of survivors go to the police. If a survivor tells you what happened to them, help him or her or them connect to a community or campus resource like a public safety group or the campus or county police. Although if the survivor doesn't want to seek assistance, respect that. Know your rights. Federally funded universities are required to comply with Title IX, which we've discussed before. These schools should have a Title IX coordinator. They're in charge of overseeing all complaints of sex discrimination. And you're able to meet with these coordinators to make sure the school is following along with Title IX. Write an OPED. OPED pieces can be a source of information to readers about different topics. Do some research on campus sexual violence and write an OPED for a school, national, or local newspaper or bulletin, or just a blog to help inform and influence readers. Use social media. Social networking is a perfect way to project and receive information for all kinds of things, especially social issues. Create hashtags for sites such as Tumblr, Twitter, or Instagram. One example can be hashtag SAAM, SAM, an acronym for Sexual Assault Awareness Month during April. Start a conversation on victim blaming and how to stop it. Host an on-campus brown bag talk about victim blaming, where and when it occurs, and how to end it. Get involved in national campaigns. It's On Us is an organization that helps keep victims of sexual assault safe. Notalone.gov is a White House site that helps anyone find resources to prevent sexual assault, assuming the site is still up and running. Volunteer at a local women's shelter or rape crisis center. If neither of these are within a close proximity to you, think about volunteering for RAINN, RAIN's online hotline. Apply for funding. Branch members of AAUW, American Association of University Women, can apply for campus outreach grants and receive near $750 to hold a sexual assault prevention event at the member school or academic institution.
Yale University. 5 presidents have gone there. Actors, scholars, leaders. Its global reputation speaks for itself, which makes this fraternity pledge ritual on the campus all the more shocking.
No means yes. Yes means no means yes. Yes means no means yes.
No means yes. And you can look online if you want to know the bleeped word, because I'm not saying it. And get this, that chant was one of the more G-rated ones. The pledges of the Delta Kappa Epsilon fraternity were shouting this stuff in an area of campus where freshman women live. Imagine being an 18-year-old young woman in a new place and hearing that from your room at night. Imagine your daughter hearing that, hearing a gang of young men moving around in the dark, chanting about rape in an area that's supposed to be a safe home away from home. Not exactly cream of the crop Ivy League behavior, is it? It's morally irresponsible, it's gross, it's creepy, and not funny at all, even though these guys must have thought it was. In this day and age, it's caveman behavior. To the National Fraternity's credit, though, it has told the Yale chapter to stop all the pledge activities for now. And the school has already held a campus forum to talk about Yale's sexual climate. A couple of years ago, pledges from another frat went to the Women's Center and held up a sign that said, "We love Yale sluts." And there was little punishment. The editor of Yale's feminist magazine said it best, quote, "Please join us in asking that this time around, Yale take action on behalf of its female students. Yale's women have endured enough in this vein. It must cease now." Well, Yale College's dean did post a response to our story on our blog. In a nutshell, Mary Miller says that Yale doesn't censor free speech, but it does call for an environment of civility and respect. She adds that at least 150 students, largely from the Women's Center and the DKE fraternity, met to begin a dialogue that hopefully leads to mutual respect. And what is important to recognize is that the fraternity has accepted responsibility, opening a new level of discourse on the issue of sexual harassment. This is definitely an opportunity to seize, end quote.
One by one, they walked out, hundreds united by the same purpose.
The idea is that it could be anyone's daughter, that these girls are all our daughters.
I want to turn now to a growing controversy surrounding the sentencing of a former Stanford University student convicted in an on-campus sexual assault. This morning, both the judge and the student's father are under fire after the promising athlete received just 6 months in jail. NBC's Gotti Schwartz has the details on this story. Gotti, good morning.
Good morning, Matt. Brock Turner has been banished from campus. He is never allowed to set foot on Stanford grounds again. But many people here are still outraged, saying the judge's 6-month sentence sends the wrong message.
20-year-old swimming star Brock Turner could have been looking at 14 years for sexually assaulting an intoxicated and unconscious woman behind a dumpster on Stanford's campus. Caught in the act by 2 Swedish students who tackled and held him there until police arrived.
Naturally, it was bad. It was really horrible, but it was hard to see.
But instead of 14 years, a judge has ruled Turner will only spend 6 months in jail, eligible for parole in 3 months, citing the defendant's age and lack of criminal record at sentencing. In court documents obtained by NBC News, a probation officer writes, Turner is remorseful, saying in his own words, "I can barely live with myself. I can't even get out of bed in the morning. I think about it every second of every day." But the lenient sentence has enraged thousands. Online, a petition circulating with more than 200,000 signatures calling for the judge to be removed from the bench. Some saying this is a case of class privilege.
If getting good grades or swimming fast is a basis for giving you an exception from the California state minimum penalties, then basically what you're saying is it's open season on college women.
Others pointing out the judge was a former Stanford athlete himself. And adding fuel to the rage, a statement made by Turner's father asking for leniency, saying his life will never be the one that he dreamed about and worked so hard to achieve. That is a steep price to pay for 20 minutes of action out of his 20-plus years of life. Turner's father now apologizing for his choice of words, while the victim has written a heart-wrenching 12-page letter to Turner that's gone viral. Your damage was concrete, stripped of titles, degrees, enrollment. My damage was internal, unseen. I carry it with me. You took away my worth, my privacy, my energy, my time, my safety, my intimacy, my confidence, my own voice. Until today.
Turner will now have to register as a sex offender. He's already started serving his sentence. He could be out as early as the beginning of the fall semester.
Hello, Today fans.
And the Daily Camera of Boulder reports that the sentence in a Colorado sexual assault case has sparked widespread outrage. 22-year-old Austin James Wilkerson could have spent years in prison, but instead, a judge sentenced him to work release and probation. That sentence is drawing comparisons to the case of the former Stanford swimmer Brock Turner. Vladimir Dudier of our streaming news network, that's CBSN, looks at the parallels here. Vlad, good morning.
Good morning. Brock Turner received just 6 months in jail for his sexual assault. Now, a judge in Boulder says Austin James Wilkerson, a former University of Colorado student, can go to work and go to school while he serves a 2-year jail sentence. This is after Wilkerson admitted he assaulted a woman who prosecutors say was inebriated and helpless.
It happened in March of 2014. According to prosecutors, Austin James Wilkerson told friends he was going to take care of a fellow University of Colorado student after she had too much to drink. But instead, he later admitted to sexually assaulting her.
We were very proud of the victim in this case, who was very courageous from the very beginning in reporting this to the university.
The victim is quoted at the sentencing hearing as saying, "When I'm not having nightmares about the rape, retaliation, or a retrial gone awry, I'm having panic attacks." According to sentencing guidelines, Judge Patrick Butler could have given Wilkerson 4 to 12 years or more in prison. Instead, Wilkerson will serve a 2-year term where he's allowed to work and go to school outside of jail, followed by probation of at least 20 years. He must also register as a sex offender.
But did not feel like the punishment fit the crime in this case.
Victims' rights advocates quickly expressed their outrage.
We have kind of come to accept that light sentences in these kind of crimes are the norm.
The judge defended his decision in an interview with a Boulder newspaper. "I've struggled, to be quite frank, with the idea of, do I put him in prison? I don't know that there is any great result for anybody."
Unfortunately, we're still living in a culture that is very passive towards this crime and still in many respects blames the victim.
The case is drawing comparisons to the recent sexual assault conviction and controversial sentencing of former Stanford University student Brock Turner. Former prosecutor Lori Levinson notes that probation was recommended in both cases.
There are many similarities here, and I think the judge in both of the cases were focused more on the defendant than the crime itself.
Brock Turner is set to be released early next month after 3 months of a 6-month sentence. As for Wilkerson, he was reportedly taken into custody immediately after Wednesday's sentencing, Dana.
Vlad, thank you.